Hey everyone, this is Jason Pannone, Head of Reference and Cultural Assets Manager at the East Hartford Public Library. I'm coming to you from my office, and I wanted to share with you today a really cool artifact that we have in our museum collection. It's a letter written by the Reverend Eliphalet Williams. Now, Reverend Williams was one of the early ministers here in East Hartford. He was the minister here for 56 years, starting in the mid-18th century and was here until his death in 1803. Really interesting guy. I'm going to read you a little biography that I did of him a few years ago. So he was born on February 25th, 1727 in Lebanon, Connecticut. The house still stands. You can drive by it. It's a private residence today, but it is kind of neat to see. He died in East Hartford on June 29th, 1803. He was the brother of William Williams, who was a delegate to the Continental Congress of 1776 and a signer of the Declaration of Independence for Connecticut. The Reverend Williams was a, let's say, colorful character and figure during his lengthy tenure at East Hartford. He was a very old school preacher. His dress was very old-fashioned. His theology was very old-fashioned. He was a very stern figure. And there's several interesting stories told about him in Joseph O. Goodwin's East Hartford, Its Histories and Traditions. We have plenty of copies of this here at the library if you want to come check it out when we eventually reopen. Or if you're interested, just let me know. I can scan the relevant pages and send them to you via email. So what I've got here is a letter that Reverend Williams wrote to his uncle, who was also named William, like his brother. And the uncle had written to the Reverend Williams and accused him of preaching an incendiary sermon in August of 1774. And the uncle claimed that Williams had told his congregation that anyone who was any British troops, any British sympathizers, any Tories should be shot because they just were not good people. And the uncle basically said, look, you got to calm down. We can't be saying stuff like this. This isn't right. What Williams does in this letter is he responds to his uncle and saying, well, that's not what I said. And he reads part of the text to him in the letter. But he does say that it does show that he's a very passionate patriot and is a big pusher for independence from Britain. And it's really interesting in the fact that the letter is dated February 8th, 1775. That's barely 2 months before the first shots of the American Revolution would be fired at Concord and Lexington, Massachusetts. It also shows just how high tempers were flaring right on the eve of the Revolution, and that it wasn't as simple as you're either a Tory or a patriot. There was a lot of people who were moderates and wanted to try to figure things out. So I'm going to try to show you a picture of the letter. If I can hold it up, it's very fragile. But this is the letter. We've got it in a protective covering. And you can see it's quite lengthy. And it also goes onto the back. There's other writing on it. And this is because paper was just a very precious commodity in colonial America. There weren't many paper mills, so paper had to be imported, and you would use every single scrap of paper you could until you couldn't use it anymore. Another time I will get out an example of an arrest warrant written by Governor Pitkin, and the first note on it is from 1764, but the piece of paper is used all the way up until 1770 because that's just how valuable paper was. So I've got a transcript of the letter, and I'll read it to you right now. East Hartford, February 8th, 1775. Honored Sir, yesterday, the first of my hearing it, I was informed by my neighbor William Perry that several months ago you told him, it was reported in my last sermon in August, I declared that whoever approved of the late doings of the British Ministry of Parliament with respect to America, etc., justly forfeited his life and deserved to die, and it was lawful for any man to kill him, or to that purpose, which you partly believed. I am sorry my uncle should have such a poor opinion of my head or heart as to think I could be guilty of such shocking rashness and wishings. 'Tis true I professed myself a zealous friend to liberty, not libertinism, and to Protestant Revolution principles, in which I was brought up, as were my predecessors, and as I would enjoy liberty myself. I equally wished the same to all others. Nowhere that I remember in the pulpit or elsewhere said anything tending to abridge anyone of his just, natural right of thinking and judging for himself in religion or politics. I can find nothing in the sermon referred to, looking at all like the above assertion. But toward the close, I have the following sentence, which, whether consistent with the above declaration, you will be pleased to judge, namely, quote, "While with decent manly firmness we assert our native and constitutional rights and prerogatives, let us act with great caution, deliberation, and good advice, and carefully abstain from all outrages and illegal, rash, or unwarranted methods, do violence to no man in his person or property, and may all little paltry mobs be utterly discountenanced and borne down with a heavy hand, and have no more place among us, thereby refraining or depriving others of that liberty for which we are contending, which directly to counteract our own principles, and tends to make the name of New England to stink through all Europe, as well as to rivet, instead of loosening, our own chains." End quote. Such were my sentiments then, such before, and ever have been since. Nor have I, upon all proper occasions, been wanting freely to testify against every kind of violence, unless in the cases of the last necessity. Nor should I take away the life of a highway robber, except in the necessary defense of my own life, in which case it supposes the great law of self-preservation takes place. But I need add no more, I thought, to justify me in your eyes, etc. Am grieved to hear of repeated abuses and insults offered to my good uncle. But then I still be more so, that he has given any just occasion for the resentment of the true friends and lovers of their country, by siding with its avowed enemies, in which I know would plant daggers in the heart of my good father, and causes it to bleed afresh. I do not indeed depend on the stories spread about, which are generally false and full of calumny, etc. But your rightly judging mind will escape the fear of solicitudes, though perhaps too officious and unnecessary, which proceed from an heart anxious for the honor, usefulness, and safety of one I have so much reason to love and revere. A story has been industriously spread that Colonel Williams of Hartford is about to turn to the Church of England, to which my answer has been that I am certain he has not lived to his last days, yet to leave his religion. May light and peace arise, and glory dwell in our land. My wife and family join in presenting dutiful regards to yourself, and salutations to all friends as due. I subscribe with utmost sincerity your abiding nephew and most humble servant, Honorable Colonel Williams, Eliphalet Williams. So that's kind of a neat window into a time far removed from our own. So anyway, that's what I wanted to show you today. Hopefully in the next few weeks I'll have some more cool stuff to show you from our collections that we don't normally pull out. And as always, practice safe social distancing, wash your hands thoroughly, and be well. Have a great day.